And so hi everyone who is watching us live, and hi Sam, hi Yunjin. I'm really happy to have you here. So we're gonna make it easy and straightforward. First of all, we go with the introductions, and then I will be throwing out the questions, and we can go with the questions. And if there's gonna be anything coming up from the people live, that will be shared with us, and we're gonna be throwing those questions as well. So thanks everyone for joining. My name is Daria, and I'm the founder of Clever Books. I'm happy to host these panel discussions with two great people on the board from two different parts of the world, which makes it even more exciting. And we first start with the intros. So Sam, over to you.
Okay, hi, my name is Sam Welbeck. I'm a school principal at Menara Teleopolis International IB School here in Cairo, Egypt. It's primarily an elementary and middle school. I'm a former systems analyst, but I've been in education now for over a decade. I studied at Queen Mary and Westfield University in London and then Roehampton in London. And I'm currently pursuing my doctoral degree at Acacia University. My master's thesis was on the benefits of AR technologies in language, primarily for PYP schools. And that's just been published actually at the International Journal of Emerging Technologies in Learning. So I'm looking forward to seeing that online. And I've also co-authored on the Clever Books manual for AR tools, which I think is available now sort of online. So that's me.
Congratulations on your publication. Well done. Now, Yunjin.
Yes. My name's Youngjin Oh. Right now, I'm talking to you from Austria, where I live. But my school, Formatio Privatschule, is located in Liechtenstein. We are a small school with primary school, middle school, as well as high school. And we do not offer international IBO program like you, Sam. I am familiar with the PYP, MYP, and DP program. Before I started my career teaching in Boston. Then I went to international school route in Switzerland, 2 different schools in Switzerland, and that brought me over to Liechtenstein. So I'm familiar with that type of curriculum. And I am the elementary school principal, as well as the director of technology, responsible for all the technology at our school. And fortunately, at our school, we are a one-to-one iPad school in the primary school and the middle school, and the high school is a bring your own laptop. So before all of this started, we had technology already in our school. And fortunately, we were somewhat ready to go when all of this happened.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot. Really impressive, both of you. Now we're going to come for the questions. So the first question that's most interesting for me, who is in the lockdown for about 3 weeks now. How long are you guys?
How long have we been in the lockdown?
Yeah.
This is my 2nd week now. The lockdown in Egypt is still partial. It's basically a nighttime lockdown. The idea is that all non-essential places, shops, etc., have to close at 5 o'clock, and then pretty much everyone's off the streets by 7. And then it opens up again at 7 in the morning the next day. There's rumor that that's now going to be tightened, but we're not 100% sure, as everyone I'm sure has experienced. This is a very sort of flexible situation, and there's no telling what's going to happen from day to day. We just wait for the authorities to give us a heads up. So it's been about 2 weeks since the school closed.
Okay. And Youngjin, about you?
Yeah, this is week number 3. So on Friday, March 13th, we were informed by the Department of Education in Liechtenstein that we'll be closing Monday, the next Monday. So everyone had to move and start prepping over the weekend. It was pretty chaotic, pretty difficult for all schools in Liechtenstein. So we're in week number 3 right now. And in Austria, as well as Liechtenstein, it's very similar to what Sam experiences in Egypt. We are not in lockdown. There is no night curfew, but people are recommended to go out only for essentials, drugstores, pharmacy, to do some shopping. But for the most part, it is a little looser, where people are able to go for walks, and do as they please, and leisure activities as well.
Got you. So that's interesting. So we're pretty much in the similar situation, and I want to start next question about specifically about the technology, and we're gonna start with you, Youngjin, this time. So I want to know what kind of you used one-to-one iPads, as you have mentioned in your school.
Yes.
And what kind of technologies you used, and which ones were actually suitable for the lockdown time?
You mean which programs and apps and
programs and apps, and what you found like the most technology that got you ready for this remote type of education now?
The technology that really helped us, obviously, are the devices. Each student already had a device that was prepared for by the school, by us. So the apps are already installed, as well as the programs. So when we had to move to the virtual or e-learning, when the kids had to stay at home, there wasn't much that needed to be done. Of course, it's just talking about technology devices. The people is a different story. But with the devices, they were pretty much ready to go. And the only thing that we had to teach was video conferencing, because we didn't use that much at all at our school. So as far as the apps and programs, they were ready, but the video conferencing is something new. And the apps and programs that we found helpful is first you have to think about the learning management systems, the LMS, and we had Shobi already involved, Google Classroom as well. So we were already familiar with that, and that helped a lot. With Shobi. Seesaw was a communication tool between the school and the families, and that was already there and essential now, communicating between school, teachers, as well as families. So to have Seesaw already there, communication tool, Shobi as the learning management system, LMS, was great. And then we just added the third thing, video conferencing, which is either Zoom, which is everywhere, a lot of people using Zoom, or Google Hangouts through Google Classroom. So those three things were the technology essentials for us. And then, yep.
And what about you, Sam, then?
A slightly different situation. We had two sections of our school, elementary and the middle school. Middle school already have one-to-one iPads, and so they were set up. They are already currently using ManageBack as part of the middle years program, the MYP for the IB. And a lot of the information which they require for assessment or homework or activity is already in place in ManageBack. So for them, it was a totally different story to what happened in the PYP. In the primary years program, it came as a shock. We were luckily beginning the planning and the training of teachers to be able to manage this. But at the time, it was all the talk of, hey, it's not going to happen. They're not going to close the schools here. This was still early March when everyone, was still thinking that this was going to pass, over a few days and just become a thing of the past. Of course, that didn't happen. We were suddenly told we would not be opening, and that again, same sort of thing that happened to Youngjin. We were told, and within a day or two, we had to have everything up and running. The application we chose for the PYP was Edmodo for several reasons. Egypt, in its revolution in 2011, really sort of utilized Facebook quite a lot. And it's probably one of the most popular social media programs or applications here in the country. Edmodo is very similar to that in its look, with its comments and likes, and having a wall. So that was the sort of program of choice. The idea was to try to find something that both parents and students might be familiar with, but it didn't mean that that was going to be the end of the story. We didn't know how many students had devices, whether they be iPads, telephones, or computers. We had the language problem, of course. Egypt is primarily an Arabic-speaking country, and most of these apps, in terms of their training materials, in terms of their instruction and using the application, is done in English or in European languages. So that was something we had to overcome. We managed to get all of the classes in place, all of the passwords in place, and to get those out to parents, but that was really the beginning of the challenge. Parents struggled to log on and struggled to find the work at the beginning. It's been 2 weeks now, and we've only just got to the end of our sort of support documentation in getting back to every single parent and being able to help them. So to answer your question, the middle school used the iPads and ManageBack. That was already set up. That was working fine. For the elementary, we used Edmodo and a variety of technologies which were already held at home for the students.
Thanks, Sam. And speaking about parents, you just mentioned that my painful part. So as a parent with the
kids in
primary school, I am experiencing a high volume of homework. How do you, by the way, deal with parents and try to maintain good relationship? Because, for example, I am a working parent full-time, and it happened that my work, it can move full-time as well, online and digital. But this means that I'm literally same way busy as I was before, but now working from home. And on top of that, I have to do the homework, apparently, because the kid doesn't want to do the homework. Well, it kind of, she does want, but not at the same level that I want her to finish this up as quickly as possible. So I'm trying to balance between homework, my work, checking up what she's doing, and so making sure that electronic devices are away while she's working with the books, for example, like physically writing something, because once she has a book and the tablet in her hand, the choice falls on the tablet, obviously, and the book is getting forgotten, and then I have to chase and make sure that it's done. So then she submits the homework, like takes a photo of it and submits on time to the teacher. How do you manage the parents and their attitude to make sure like they are responsible enough to chase the kids and do the homework? Do you have any checkups on that, or teachers are dealing with that? How does it work? And I'm gonna start with Youngjin first.
Sure. Well, for me, it was important. Sunday evening, I talked to, before we opened our virtual school, to talk to all the parents. So we had 2 different classes, 2 different groups, and then I talked to them and said, what will be happening? Fortunately, like I said before, we had technology already there. So the parents were aware of their kids using iPads and working as a working device, not a playing device. Because I think for the parents at home, they just see their kid playing with a tablet. They've never really seen, unless they come to our school during some open houses, to see their child working with this device rather and constructing knowledge, not just being passive and learning. So they already had that knowledge, luckily. So for me, it was open communication with the parents. I had several meetings with them that Sunday before we launched, and then 2 times during that week. And I continue to have meetings with the parents. Yes, it's exhausting. Yes, it's a lot of work, but we have to understand as managers of schools that the responsibility of parents has increased. Like you said, Dar, I am a parent of 2 girls in grade 5 and grade 3. I completely understand and empathetic to that cause. So it only works if we have the trust and the support of the parents. So open communication is essential. The next thing is we have times where we are video conferencing with the kids. We don't have the same schedule. Like, okay, now it's English at 9. Okay, now it's 9:45. It's math. We don't have that. We created more blocks, and the teachers are responsible to start the lesson with the kids, and they're present. And the parents really found that wonderful, because it wasn't like that they're just getting emailed a PDF, and then mommy and daddy have to print it and then teach it to their kids, and then there is no motivation, and it becomes a fight. So we understand that, so that's why it's important that we have some connection with the kids. We're present, we can help them, they can raise their hand, they can talk to, and you can see the responsibility is taken by us. Some, most is still with the parents. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can change. But we do want to alleviate that pain and be present and run some classes and offer help. So that has been huge for us too. And the parents really appreciate all the effort and the energy from our teachers to help them with this e-learning process.
That's amazing. Thank you. And how are you dealing, Sam?
I can echo quite a lot of the things that Youngjin has already said with regards to parents. It is really tough for parents. I'm a parent myself. My two youngest children are in my school, and I'm struggling with their work. It's coming from my school. So, if I'm going to struggle, then, what about the other parents? There are a lot of things which need to be considered by school leaders if we are going to make any sort of success of this new mode of learning. But it needs to be two ways. I think some things need to be understood by the leaders and the teachers, and some things need to be understood also by the parents. For leaders, for schools, just as Youngjin said, we have to start to think about, we've got to rethink the curriculum. We can't just turn what we were doing into a digital format and say, well, there it is. It doesn't work. First of all, it's too much. If you've studied online before, I think for those who are watching, if you've ever studied online before, you'll understand what I mean. For some reason, when we're working online, we tend to think a little bit more slowly than we do when we're in front of people. You can read an instruction 3 or 4 times and still think, I don't get it. So if that's adults having that problem, imagine what kids are going through. So we've got to rethink the curriculum. But there are other reasons too. We've got to remember that we're now dealing with a situation where the equitable learning isn't there. We don't know the environment the child is working in. It could be a noisy household. They might have young siblings, a baby that's always crying. They might not have a dedicated place to study. What about all the practicals which go with the learning? There's no lab, there's no science lab, there's no field trips, for example, to scaffold the learning that's happening. And then when you look at other things like speed of internet access at all, and as Youngjin mentioned, and what if there is no printer? We cannot simply take the curriculum we had and say, here it is. So we've got to rethink it from the ground up. But the reason I said it's a two-way street is that parents also have to realize most schools didn't have enough time to formulate a new curriculum. Curriculum building is something that we as educational leaders and as teachers and managers spend a lot of time thinking about, assessing, criticizing, reforming. And it's simply not something that you can do that effectively within a day. So for most schools in the world, I should imagine, what they've done is they've just rehashed what they've got, and they've tried to think of the content that will be most needed, most applicable, most user-friendly, and they've tried to put something together. Give leaders and schools time as a parent to work through that. And most schools, like us, we're trying to be as flexible as possible with regards to how we're going to reshape this to suit the feedback which is coming back from parents. So I'll echo what Youngjin said. Communication is very important. I'll give you an example. We have a parent committee, which we call the ATP, the Action Team for Partnership, that is chaired by a particular lady who's great in terms of communicating the concerns and worries of parents. And I'm talking to them on every single day on a regular basis. And from that feedback, I'm able to talk to my staff regularly and reflect on what we're doing and the best ways that we can amend things to be able to suit parents. They understand that it's a struggle for us. We understand it's a struggle for them, and we're all in it together. And that has got to be one of the most important factors in building a new curriculum for home learning.
I do want to build on what Sam said. I totally agree. And I think luckily, I think a lot of our parents, as well as your parents, Sam, at your school are very understanding of this very unique situation. But it needs to be clear to the parents that this is not business as usual. Some people think just keep teaching as you did in the classroom, but it's just not possible. So to pass that information on to the parents so they understand, and also understand that we will not be watching their kid from 8:30 to 4:30 or so on. No, it's not possible. And please don't put that burden on us. We just can't. We cannot do that. So expectations need to be set and very clear with the parents, as well as because technology doesn't sleep. People also sometimes think I can just contact my teacher. It's 8 o'clock at night. School's closed. And I'm sorry. We love your students. We do a lot for your kids. But it's 8 o'clock at night, and we need our privacy as well. And so that, I think, with the parent contact, with good parent relationship, we're able to translate and tell them these certain things. And it's important that we do pass it on to the parents.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you both. So I think it's a good and value point to communicate regularly with parents, because as a parent, I find myself, for example, in the following situation. It might not be specific for everyone, but still, I was born, like I live right now in Ireland, but I was born in Ukraine. So all my school years I spent in Ukraine. And I have already noticed that the education in Ireland, through which my daughter is going, is a completely different way, that the way compared to the way I was educated.
Mm-hmm.
And the simple mathematical concepts are completely differently explained. And for me, it's like, oh my God, I don't understand how and why. And when I try to explain from my perspective, she doesn't get it either. She said, like, it's not the way we are taught. I said, like, I don't know the way you're taught because I never went through that. So, and that could be also, it's one thing to repeat the material or do something with the kids that that was already explained by the professionals at school. And it's a completely different when you have to explain some new concepts, which you might be explaining them in the correct way from your perspective, but it could be in an absolutely different way to solve the same mathematical problem in the country she's studying in. And that also a big challenge, to be honest with you, just to deal with that all. I have another question to you. So that's all good when you have technology, when you study standard subjects according to the curriculum. But in school, there is always the activity mix of like physical activity and mental activity. So how do you deal with like mixing that up as well in the environment that we are right now? So in studying remote and digital. And we're going to start with Yongjin then.
Sure. Yeah, I think the physical as well as mental well-being of the students, teachers, and parents is very, very important to keep in mind with this activity. Because as you already said, Daria, that as a parent, you go crazy, and Sam and myself as well. So we need to be taken care of as well when we do this e-learning, this virtual learning. But what we do is we tell the kids to get away from the screen. Because a lot of the teaching is done with this, just like video conferencing, and they're looking at a screen. So we do encourage them, okay, sports today, this is what you have to do. And so they do some jumping jacks, they have a timer going on, then they just post it through our learning management system, how long it took them to do this jumping jacks. Even take a photo, a selfie with them doing something, and the kids really enjoy that because they are part of this YouTube generation. They're used to watching people do stuff for themselves. So they feel very comfortable. Now they have their own YouTube channel with Mr. O, for example, or the teacher. They're doing push-ups. They're writing their time down. Some of them know technology very well. So they make a little iMovie with music. Dun, 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 dun. And they get really motivated about that. And that's what the beauty of technology does. It makes them creative and gives them motivation, and also makes a lot of fun. So those are ways that we keep them active, not just sitting at their desk, which they do, of course, but also get away from the desk and do some fun stuff, do an art class, start building some stuff with STEAM or STEM, and all those activities. Take a picture, upload it, reflect about it, and so you can be creative about it, and so you're not just sitting at your desk and looking at a screen to do work.
That sounds brilliant, Yongjin. What about you, Sam? How do you do in school?
It's a very similar thing. We've actually just planned and trained our teachers in using Zoom, and we are going to begin that on Sunday. People who are watching, if familiar with the Middle East, know that the weekend is Friday and Saturday. So Sunday will be the first day where we begin these sort of live interactive sessions. So very much as Youngjin has said, that's the sort of format we're going to be following to make sure that students aren't just glued to screens for hours and hours. That said, I'd just like to mention something which I think is majorly important. This isn't a normal situation. This isn't normal school. Teachers are trained professionals, and when they take your children in at 7:45 or 8 or 9 or whatever time you start, they get about 6 hours with trained professionals that take them through a sort of variety of tasks, multitasking, with so many elements to it: physical, mental, cognitive. And by the time they get home, they'll have had this huge array of activity. That's why children are so tired at the end of the day from school, especially elementary children. We've now got a slight role reversal, and it is important that heads, teachers, and parents all communicate this very, very well. We've got to understand that learning isn't just books, it's not just the content. There's got to be a shift, there's got to be a paradigm shift in our thinking. It doesn't mean simply because the teacher said turn to page 9 to 12 and that's it, that's the learning finished. Parents have a huge role they can play now in what I call real learning. Now, real learning is situational. Real learning is when things happen in real time, in real life. So there's a lot we can do at home with our kids as parents to help them. They can build things using materials at home, and you can be using the computer to understand. You've got YouTube videos with instructions on how to do things. You've got websites which show you how to do it. So we can start with the computer, but then we can move to working off screen. They could be writing stories. There are free websites which help you to actually write stories and then publish them online. Or get children to keep a diary. That would be great. You can play board games. Monopoly, for example, that's great for business and finance if we're talking about learning. What about a game of charades as a family? You've got social skills there. There's lots of communication. Learn a language together. There's many, many websites which will take you through learning a language. Why can't parents and children sit together and work through a language like Mandarin or something which they would previously never have thought they could learn? You've now got the time. You can practice communicating in this new language every day and see how far you can get. But there's so many other things. We can use Google Maps to travel the world. We can actually walk the streets of Russia with Google Maps. Chess. A great, game for sort of cognitive enhancement, or like my son is 8 years old. He cooked his first egg during this sort of lockdown period, and he learned about time. He's useless with time. It's one of the things in the maths lessons he's never quite managed to figure out. But when he burnt his egg, all of a sudden time became significant, and he realized that when I said take it off 5 to 2, I meant 5 to 2. As parents, we can get involved in the learning, in real learning. And actually, there are many studies that show when children are exposed to real life problems regularly, which they are independent in solving, they use those skills when it comes to the sort of book and academic elements of learning at school. They use those same skills learned, and they're able to enhance their learning in ways that children who aren't exposed to regular real life problems can't. So we've got to take that element into consideration.
That's brilliant. Thanks a lot, Sam. You wanted to add something, Youngjin?
Yes, I think time is something Sam talked about, but as all of us with working parents and our spouses probably maybe as well, it is very difficult to provide that real life experience. You're 100%, Sam, 100% correct. I agree with you. But when my wife is 100% working and so am I'm not available to provide that real life thing. I think it's a gift for our kids to cook with them and provide that stuff. But sometimes I can't, and neither can my wife. So I think that's why that expectation has to change. And also the teachers or us as a school has to take some responsibility to provide that and provide and scaffold that for those childs to build a fort out of blankets and pillows, and then to build it themselves. So they're they have that independent learning, and they can take care of themselves rather than waiting for mommy or daddy to say, hey, I have this assignment for Mr. O, I have to build this thing, and just wait for them. And then mommy and dad are like, oh, in their home office, like really working. Yeah, so I think time is really an issue for all of us with this new situation.
Yeah.
But I think
if I could just
go ahead, Sam.
So if I could just go off the back of that, it's important for me that I just clear this up, because I'm guilty. Young Jin, you're absolutely right. As a school principal, I literally have no time. You know, I'm up at 5 in the morning. You know, and I look at my phone, and you know, I've already got 87 WhatsApp messages. You know, my son is constantly looking for the time that I can spend with him, and due to work, and my wife's a teacher, due to work, we just don't have it. I think I understand that 100%. I think the point I was really trying to get across is that we have to have a mental paradigm shift as to what learning is.
Definitely.
You know, learning can happen in so many ways. You know, it doesn't have to involve mum and dad all the time. But what's happening, at least with many of the communities and parents here in Cairo, is that if the child isn't solving a math question or doesn't have their face glued to the screen or a book, then they're missing out. And I think that needs to be addressed.
They're not learning.
There's lots of other things that they could be doing which will still be considered learning. The school will not leave them to it. You know, we'll give the instruction, we'll try our best to help out, but at the end of the day, we're not there. They're at home, and you know, at some point, we all have to start realizing that we're not going to have a generation of kids who are going to fail. If anything, we have an opportunity to extend their learning way beyond people who didn't have this experience, way beyond what they've ever had, because it will be situational, it will be very varied, it will be real life, and there's lots of problems that we can put in front of kids and say, let me see how you solve that. And I think that would be very beneficial if we can get that paradigm shift in our minds sorted out.
Thank you very much. So I think the comments are amazing and relevant. And the most important thing, we need to be positive at all times, in my opinion. And the positive side of this situation is that we have a lot of time to spend with our kids, because we are in the same environment, which is great, and to build relationship or rebuild relationship or do something we haven't done before. And I think it's the positive part. And I have some questions already popping up from the audience to you guys, so I have to stop with my questions, and we're gonna move to the questions from the audience. So the first question is, I think it's to Sam, and the question is about, you mentioned there was the opportunity to write a story and publish it somewhere. What kind of apps would you recommend? So Youngjin, if you have also the apps, you can step in after the Sam and also let us know if you have any.
God, I've got to name the apps now. This is where you're going to catch me out. I can't name the apps, but I can tell you what to do. Simply Google writing storybooks for kids free. Google that, writing storybooks for kids free, and your first 3 websites will be doing it for you. For a lot of these websites, you do have to sign in, you know, create a profile, but they're not always paid. Normally what happens is they will charge when it comes to the publishing stage. And that normally involves if you want to get it printed and then sent to your house. But if all you're interested in is a platform where children can build characters, put scenes together, and build a storyline, then you know that part's absolutely free. And I really urge everyone who's listening or is interested in doing that to try it out, because as Youngjun mentioned before, this is a digital native generation. They thrive on technology, and their enthusiasm is tenfold when they're doing an absolutely normal thing, but doing it in a digital way. So all of a sudden, writing a story becomes something a child can be doing for absolutely hours. So please check out the actual names of the speaking and then get back to you. But they are there and they do exist. I've seen them myself.
Okay, thanks. Youngjin?
Yes, one of the apps that we use that's very, very easy and very child-friendly for PYP as well as maybe early MYP for the is called Book Creator, and that's for iOS and I believe Android and Windows. It's out maybe in 2017. It came out, and this app is wonderful. It's very easy to use. Yes, it takes a little bit of training by the teachers to figure out, but the kids pick it up really fast. We even have grade 1 kids making their own books. You can import pictures, add your own voice. You can even directly draw on it and add your text. And as well as they have a comic feature where you can make your own comic book. And so again, using technology and being creative and gives the power to the kids. It's been a real joy for those kids who use Book Creator. So that's one thing I definitely encourage. They can also, for the older kids, use PowerPoint or even Keynote if it's an Apple device to make their stories, to take pictures with their tablet or their smartphone, put it there, and then they can start building stories, building a presentation. That's also very useful with cool animations to come in. And that's also another easy thing to do if you don't have access to Book Creator.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Emil, for sharing. Now, another question is about the video. So you mentioned both that you have video, you started using video with the lockdown. And the question is, what are the main 2 to 3 learning points that you have experienced by using video and doing remote lessons? So whoever wants to start. Ooh, I see a lot of
I think young Jin's probably got a lot more experience in this because they've already started. We've just literally finished our training. But what has been really interesting in the training is looking at some of the features of Zoom. Zoom is what we've decided to use. I think if you're in the States, you're going to have to check the regulatory issues that you might fall into to do with security when it comes to using the application. But for us, those aren't an issue for us at this present time. There are absolutely brilliant features within it, not just things like being able to change the background to be able to suit the topic that you're working on, which is huge fun. You can literally pretend you're anywhere in the world. But there's a feature in there which I absolutely love, which is the breakout room. Now, the breakout room works when you've got quite a number of participants in your session, and you're at the stage where you would like to put them into groups. Now, this could be used for differentiation, or it could simply be used as a form of group work and sort of socializing to discuss a particular issue. But as the host, as the teacher, you're able to put them into these groups randomly, or groups that you've pre-designed. And then you're able to visit these different groups to see how they're getting on. You're able to broadcast instructions to them all at the same time, and you can give them a timer when you're going to pull all the groups back to the main session. Now, for me, that was absolutely brilliant. In the training, when we were going through the workshops on that, we came across that feature. We were absolutely delighted because for us, differentiation is a huge part of the type of school we are. Being an IB school, we're trying to tailor education to suit individuals, not just whole classes or whole grades. So something like that really works well. And there are other features such as being able to take attendance. You're also able to survey understanding through sort of emojis and thumbs up and claps. And of course, you can see all the children, which is great. They all pop up in little squares, so you can just sort of wave at everyone. For an elementary school kid who's been away from his teacher for 2 weeks, that can be a painful experience. They're yearning to see them, and being able to have this sort of group work where everyone's together again on screen is fantastic.
Brilliant, thank you, Sam. So Yeongjin, your turn.
Yes, the breakout room feature for Zoom is great. Some tips and tricks when you start using video conferencing. We use Zoom as well, so I'll just talk about Zoom. Your first class, when the kids click on, expect chaos. Expect it to be very, very loud. The kids are very excited to see their friends and see a reflection of themselves with the camera. And so it's going to be a little loud, a little crazy. It's okay. That happens. And then you say, okay, now we're going to start a lesson. But that first thing, when they start coming in and the host admits them, boom, 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 then you have 27 smiling faces. Hey, and then it gets a little crazy. It's okay. Yeah, exactly. And that's normal. It's okay. It will get better. So for all the teachers listening out there, they're like, I hate Zoom. It will get better. And it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. After that craziness and chaos, a couple of other tips is definitely mute all for your students. So you are the only one allowed to talk. There is another feature where they raise their hand. Keep an eye on the participants list. You see a little blue hand come around by the name of the student. Oh, okay, I'm going to stop now, and then unmute that student and say, okay, what's your question? That's very, very helpful to do. Share screen feature is also great. So you can prepare some sort of presentation where you can even connect your iPad or tablet and write on it some mathematical equations and go through a lesson. That's very, very helpful too. What I do recommend is not to lecture, because they, especially younger kids, don't want to see your face the whole time. They will zone out very, very fast. So really keep it short and sweet, your lecture, your presentation part, and then move on to a breakout room, some one-on-one time, talk to this group here, or even divide that 45-minute lesson, if you have 45-minute lessons, to just an intro 5-10 minutes, because that's the only time they'll really pay attention, and then move on to actual work. And you can stay on a Zoom lesson where the kids, okay, well, get to work, and I'm here. You can just talk to me, and then maybe they're there, and then maybe they turn the screen off, and they start working a bit, and then they come back in and say, Mr., I have a question, and there you are present, you have a contact. So there's different ways to manage your Zoom lesson, but do not talk for the whole time. That I do not recommend.
Otherwise, it turns to be just a film, and when they are bored of that film content, they're gonna just switch it off and change the channel.
Yes. One downfall that I find video conferencing, as teachers, we are very, very good at, when we teach, we can look around our class and evaluate what's going on. The kids are not understanding. Sometimes you can't see that. Maybe their face is pixelated. Maybe their Wi-Fi is slow. This personal contact and this evaluation from teachers is gone. We're not sure who's not understanding, and sometimes that quiet kid who doesn't understand will not say anything, and then so you're not able to gauge that through video conferencing. So that's something that is difficult, and therefore you should set up a small group video conference, or even a one-to-one with the kids, and that's a better way of spending your Zoom time than a big 45-minute chunk. So maybe do a little bit, 5, 10, 15 minutes, and then break off the smaller groups and really talk to them with the video conferencing tool. Also, talking to parents too. Use video conferencing not just for students, but to talk to those parents and get in touch with them as well.
Yeah, well, that's brilliant tips. That's brilliant. Thank you. So I have a lot of questions. I need just to dig in and select the ones that are more relevant and more interesting. Oh, there's a question coming from a teacher who is in the lockdown for a month, which is 4 weeks already, and mentions that they are having, but it's all going well with technology, but the issue that they have found out relevant is the mental well-being for all the students, because they are missing their friends, they are not meeting them apart from the video. And how are you planning, as they heard that you're not in the long-time lockdown, how do you plan to address those issues? And do you have any strategy that you plan to implement because of the uncertainty of the time the lockdown is going to be happening?
Yeah, we have started looking at that. Myself and the senior leadership team have started looking at it. There are so many variables with regards to well-being. It isn't something which I think we're going to get right straight away. At the end of the day, we don't have access to the children. We don't. And trying to get sort of one-to-one interactions with them is going to be difficult. My school is relatively small, and we're talking about just under 600 children. So that's not going to happen quickly. But one of the things we can do maybe is just think up ways in which we can connect with the children, which aren't necessarily connected to them doing any tasks or finishing anything. I'll give you an example of one which we've got, which we've been thinking about we're going to do. I personally have been doing readings with classes about 3 times a week. And straight after the broadcast line, I go to classes and I read to the kids. It's a way to interact with them. It's a way to hear their stories. And what's great about it is I read books that they've written. So the process is you write a book, you hand it in to your teacher. Your teacher then gives it to my assistant. My assistant piles them up and gives me a list. 3 times a week I go on, I pick the latest book which I've received, and I go into the class and read it, and then we discuss. And through reading these books that the children have written, we're able to talk about things that happen in their lives, what they experience, what they go through. You know, in the middle of the book, I'll ask a question. Has anyone else ever felt like this when I'm talking about the characters? So I'm doing that in real life. We want to bring that into this new digital learning world that we're in. And we want to introduce that, not straight away, because we're just about to start with the live sessions and teachers need time to get used to it. Parents need time to get used to it. But after a couple of weeks, when we have been locked down for a month, this is one of the strategies that we're going to start with. And I'm going to be doing it personally. I'm going to be taking classes in and I'm going to be reading books to them, not always necessarily books that they've written, but books which allow them a chance to tell me a little bit about what's going on with them at home. And stories is always a great way to communicate with children because it gives them a safe space to be able to relate to whatever's happening to characters and to get some sort of release or outlet to be able to talk about how they feel in a way which isn't necessarily directly targeted at them and their experience. That's just one.
Okay, thank you, Sam. So, Youngjin?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sam, those are great ideas. I wrote those ideas down. I like those. I think kids should be encouraged to also have fun with their friends. Sometimes they do FaceTime through Apple products, or they're able to do some sort of chat. And I do encourage that because the kids do need to have contact with their friends outside of school. And also make a little mischief. They need to do that stuff and laugh and make jokes. It's not all serious time. So they need that outlet as well. But the second thing in a school, when we do have work to do through video conferencing, and Sam, I do recommend this, is that when kids are doing projects like using Book Creator, writing their books, that when the product is finished, that within the class they present. And then you keep that community together. So every kid has a presentation and they have that time to talk and the other kids get to hear their friend talking. And then you do have the question and answer time where the kids say, hey, very nice job, Sam. I liked your presentation. Can you tell me more about that? So it keeps that classroom community together and they are happy. They are happy to talk in front of their kids, their friends again, in front of the class. They're happy to share that. And the kids are happy to ask questions just like a normal classroom. So I think with having that within the class does keep them active. But Daria, your question, the well-being is something that, like Sam says, the process. We haven't figured that out yet. But with technology, we're able to keep them connected to their friends, able to keep this community together. It's not perfect, but I think with all of our creative minds, people are getting creative ideas to do this. One thing also is another project idea is to have it done in pieces. So the kids are responsible for certain things. So then they have to collaborate and come together. And then 2 weeks later, when the project's done, they have a finished story, for example. Or even using music, they do little pieces of music. Then you can put it together and have this song for your class. So it does keep that community together. It's broken up in parts. The teacher puts it together and say, hey, this is what we have a homeroom class. And so, to keep that stuff together is just an idea.
Oh, that's brilliant, Youngjin. Great ideas. Thank you. So we have here 10 minutes of time, but we have 2 questions that I'm really, really eager to ask you, but I'm going to combine them together because they're kind of similar and kind of different. So in the digital era, do you, and the time that we are experiencing right now, do you use only tools that you know, or you still experiment with something that you haven't used before in terms of technology? And the second question, while everybody is studying and communicating online, do you consider collaboration outside your school and outside your classroom, like connecting with other countries' classrooms and other countries' schools to do some projects together live? There you go, guys.
Thank you. The second question is brilliant. We haven't yet, and thank you for mentioning that, because that's something which, my God, why aren't we doing that? This is an opportunity for us. Everyone's in the same situation. Let's use this world community spirit to really bring that into the classroom, because now the classrooms are connected. We can now have conference sessions where half the students are in Germany and half the students are in New Zealand. Let's do that. Let's as educators, let's put our resources together. Let's communicate and collaborate much more than we ever have done, because, well, now there isn't anything else that we can be doing. We haven't got the commute to work. Most of us don't have the same level of paperwork and administration that we would have. Our class observations are now down to watching each other, peer observations, watching each other in our classes. In all fairness, we've now got just that little bit of time to be able to connect with each other in ways that maybe we couldn't have done when we were in the school building. Can you just remind me of the first part of the question, because I forgot.
And the first part was about experimenting. Do you use the technology you know and trust, or you experiment?
Oh God, no! This is the time to experiment. All right, give it a go. Right. What I love about technology, especially when it comes to some of the already established educational technologies which are available online, is you can't break it. So play with it. Nearly everybody has a free trial, and especially during this period, people have been very generous in opening up their systems for schools and teachers and students to use. So get in there, download things, play with them, discuss them within your teams. I just learned about Web Whiteboard. I didn't know about that before. I didn't know about this very, very simple application which allowed you to share your screen on a PC whilst writing using a tablet, and the two are automatically connected. It's great. It helps math teachers, art teachers, science teachers, anyone who is describing something which requires freehand writing, to be able to share their screen and do it in a way which is legible. There I was with my mouse trying, to write. I mean, have you ever came with a mouse? It's near impossible. But at the same time, you don't always want to use your tablet when you're working with multiple applications. Well, Web Whiteboard, Google it, find out how you can use that, because that totally solves the problem. So I would say absolutely 100%, get out there. You can't break this software. If the worst happens, you just, uninstall it and reinstall it. Nothing's going to go wrong. But, find out as much as you can about as much technology which is out there which can help you educationally as possible. Talk to other educational leaders, talk to teachers, get on forums on Facebook. There are a million, and they're all talking about the different and brilliant ways that we can use different technologies to help children cognitively, in terms of the social skills. So please don't stick to what you know. Don't waste an opportunity like this where you can get out there and expand what you know.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sam. What about you, Yanjin? Do you want me to repeat the questions?
No, it's okay. No, I mean, I have to echo what Sam says. I think part of the PYP program is being risk takers. And as teachers, we have to do that. But so, of course, definitely I encourage and we encourage each other to try different things, try a new program, try new apps, give it a whirl. Like Sam said, you can't break it. You can't break the device. But one thing that's really important is that we have to be open with mistakes. We all make mistakes, but a lot of teachers aren't feel comfortable doing that in front of their class, in front of their students, because oftentimes the students know more technology-wise than us. And so it's a hard pill to swallow. So I think it's important that the teachers do practice and do have experiment, but there should be someone in-house to really support them with the technology side, because not all teachers are very tech savvy and can handle it by themselves. So something we consider as school leaders is that there is someone who can support them and maybe step in while this teacher is teaching, so they can experiment and they can take risks and they can make mistakes. But when you're completely alone, it's a small percentage of teachers who will do that on their own to initiate themselves and make mistakes in front of their class. So that's why I do encourage that there's someone there to support them to make those mistakes and help them with experimenting. I think there's a lot of teachers that want to do it, but they don't know how, they don't know which way to go. And so if there is a professional there to help them, then I think they feel more comfortable doing that. Question 2 is a great one. The collaboration with technology, we can do that. It's it's much easier than before than doing the old school pen pals, writing a letter, sending that, and then 2 weeks later it gets to Italy, and then 2 weeks later it comes back. We can do that, and it's much on a faster speed. So collaborating with other schools, finding a partner school. I know in Europe they have Erasmus. They have these EU sponsored programs where you can make a connection with a partner school and do a project for 2-3 years. If you're based in a different country, you don't have this Erasmus opportunity. But you can find other schools that are interested in partnering and use video conferencing using Skype, doing projects like writing books together and sharing their culture. How do you take the bus? What is your bus like? What is your daily walk like? And all that stuff, they can share that knowledge very easily. And there are platforms online that you can do this. And I do encourage that. And it is available for teachers to find out and connect with other schools. And it's not as difficult as people think, but definitely collaborate projects and get in touch with other schools and share your cultures. It's huge.
Thank you. So I also like the idea about sharing between schools in different countries. Without traveling, you can learn from your peers on what's going on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Sam, you wanted to add something?
I just wanted to bolt onto the back of what Young Jim was saying, because I think it's absolutely important that as leaders that we also try to emphasize what we should be doing as schools, try to facilitate all of this. It's one thing to be experimenting with applications. Teachers, I think, naturally are doing that because teachers are very inquisitive. They are inquirers by nature. It's part of the work. We're always learning something new because the methods of teaching are constantly being enhanced. But as leaders, it's also important to support that. And we need to concentrate as leaders on systems. One of the things we can do is try to determine the skill base within our teams that can form groups or committees to support the teachers who aren't so good with the technology. And I think what Young Jim was saying was absolutely right. We've got to understand that we do have quite a large base of teachers that are used to the regular things like PowerPoint and Word, but outside of Office and outside of maybe Facebook and Instagram, they haven't had a chance to really explore all of these amazing technologies which suddenly seem to have popped out from nowhere. But there are others for whom this is almost second nature. So as leaders, it's important to put systems in place, put committees, put groups in place that teachers can go to without feeling or silly, and go to them and say, right, guys, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to deliver, this lesson, this session to the children. What can I use? What can have these groups there to support them and give them the sort of so that they go back and complete what it is that they need.
This is brilliant, and this is like absolutely positive. The way I really love it, because I think regardless of the situation, we need to keep positive. We need to look at the challenges as the new opportunities. We need to learn, and we need to understand that each day is different, and each day brings something new to our lives, regardless if it's like something going like a virus outside and you can't leave the house, or maybe the new technology is stepping in and you don't know that. We just need to be open to embrace everything that life actually gives us, because keeping positive is never harms, I think. And I would like to thank those great people on the panel discussion today. Thank you very much for your input, for the fantastic information shared, and it was absolutely useful. I just, I saw the amount of questions we had through different channels, and it was difficult for me to select. So I was really, really picky this time, but appreciate a lot your input, and thank you very much. It was pleasure talking to you. And if anybody has any other questions, feel free to put them in the Facebook like you've done, or in the or just send over to the EdTech for the future, and they will share with the speakers if you want the answers from somebody specific. Thank you very much all for the attention, and my pleasure hosting this fantastic panel today. Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you very much, Youngjin.
Welcome.
Thank you, Daya. Thank you.
Keep meeting you, the new word.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Take care.